Thanks so much for taking some time to visit this site and to watch this video. It's a joy to be talking to different individuals each month about parts of our university passage, which you know are the I am statements from the Gospel of John. And today we're going to be focusing a bit on John 8:58, and we have the privilege of having with us John Baugus, who is going to share with us a little bit about his insights and experience with this particular passage and its implications for daily living for us as a Christian community. So, John, it's really good to have you here. Thanks for taking time, and thanks for being willing to talk with us a little bit about this passage. As we know, John 8:58, Jesus said, before Abraham was, I am. Yes. Tell us, John, as you read and thought about this particular reference of Jesus in the Gospel of John, what were some new learnings or a new insight or a deep truth that just seemed to emerge from this particular passage and its context?
I always like to look at the context and see what emerged in this conversation, and this really is part of a dialogue that Jesus is having, trying to explain a bit about who he is. Mm-hmm. And the Jews are trying to understand a little bit more about who he is. And at some places I think they're confused, and at some places they're actually beginning to get angry. And this is a place where I think this conversation kind of hits a crescendo, if you will, because they're talking about Abraham, and Jesus is referring to Abraham as if he has seen him, and vice versa. And they can't understand that, why a young man like Jesus would claim to have seen Abraham. And then he makes this statement and says, well, before Abraham was, I am. At that point, I find it to be a tremendously encouraging and edifying statement. But that's not how the listeners then received it, because they said, well, wait a minute, he's claiming then to be God. He's claiming to be deity, which I find greatly reassuring. They found to be blasphemous. And so if you go on to verse 59, they actually pick up stones when they hear that statement, because they're so incensed by his declaration. And for me, one of the learnings was that in some ways a lot hasn't changed. When I think of this statement, it is a bold and sweeping statement about who Jesus is that very much affirms my own faith. But that's not true of everybody who hears that statement of Jesus or who reads that statement. And so it is a dividing line.
Sure. For people. It's interesting that it seems as though in this passage, one of the most obvious points is the connection or the juxtaposing of the verb tenses. Yes. Before Abraham was, Jesus says, I am. Yes. Past. And now Christ comes out by saying, I am in the present tense. Yes. It's an interesting positioning there, which sounds to me as though is the basis of a reassurance that you gain from this. Yes, because he really is making a statement about his eternal nature, the fact that he is deity, and I would see it as his immutable nature. You know, he is the Alpha, the Omega. The one who was and is to come. Yeah, let me go back. The immutable nature. Help us understand what that word immutable means. Unchangeable nature. Unchangeable. He is the same yesterday, and today, and forever. I believe that's what the writer of Hebrews wrote about him. Yes. And so that, again, is a tremendously powerful thing to think about God, and to think that Jesus is God. And God came to meet us, showed us himself through Jesus. And in many other factors, of course, in terms of our salvation and grace and so forth. But just that fact that Jesus is God himself. Yes. You mentioned that one of the powerful influences or the powerful truths of this passage was the fact that Jesus was God, and that provides an extremely high level of encouragement or hope to you. Presumably that truth also affects your own life in terms of how you approach your daily living and your daily responsibilities. Would that be an accurate assumption? Very much so. Yeah. And when I am my best self, which is arguably not all the time. It's true of all of us. It probably is. But I'm looking to
to the Lord in prayer, and I'm looking to His Word for insight, and I'm placing my trust in Him. And as I place my trust in Him and I reflect on these verses, I'm recognizing my trust is very well placed.
Yeah.
Because before APU, I am.
Yeah.
Before this problem I have with my children about how we're going to make a decision, I am. Mm-hmm. Before Dr. Cornelius Haggard, I am. Before this difficult HR situation, this employee relations situation, I am. And so when I can allow myself to get out of my own sense of I can do this, I can work this out, I have these skills and abilities, into, Lord, will you intervene in this situation? And Lord, will you help me to know your mind on this matter? Will you help me to make the right decision in this matter? I find that then my trust is well placed.
Yes.
And God is faithful. Mm-hmm. He meets me where I'm at, whether it's as a parent, as a husband, as a person in human resources, as a leader.
Very well stated, very well stated. And it seems to me that essentially at the bottom, at the fundamental level, what you're saying is that the peace that we have in operating as a Christian university, in living out our faith, comes not in our stridency or in our energy to do more, to do better, but it is living in the assurance that the great I am is among us, and we rest, we find peace, or the shalom of Christ in the knowledge that before any of these things, Jesus says, I am. I suspect that perhaps throughout daily operations, a few people may stop you and ask you a little bit more about what you've said here today. Thanks for taking some time to be with us. And I hope that not only will you take a moment in reflecting on this video, but that you'll take advantage of some of the additional resources that we're making available to you, particularly the printed resources that include a statement of context about this particular passage, as well as some application questions that have been developed by various ones in our community. By this, we hope that you will be able to really lean into integrating the Word of God into your daily life as we together are on the journey of creating a greater amount of Christian presence in our community here at APU. Thanks, and may God bless you.